Dark Phoenix comes out tomorrow, and the review embargo has finally lifted. We get our first look at what people think about this movie, and they almost unanimously think it's really, really bad. So how bad is it? Well, we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to tell you whether or not you should still go see it. It's like the news, but for nerds. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Today's shout out goes to Harley Nip. Indeed, Keanu Reeves was going to be Jan Rog and Captain Marvel. Make sure you stay to the end of the video where we will ask another nerd card question. What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you. I'm, of course, Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. I want to apologize for the late video today and no video yesterday. I'm out of town, which is usually not a problem. I can shoot the show on the go, but I left my computer, which has like everything I need to do the show, back in Philadelphia. I also forgot my normal lapel mic, which is why I'm using this one. I scrambled today to get it figured out, so again, that's why the video's late today, and it might be a little wacky while I'm out of town until I get back into the studio, but we will have content throughout the rest of the week, I promise. And real quick before we get into the news, if you could smash that like button like you guys have been doing, it would definitely help me out, especially because this video might be hurt because we didn't do one yesterday. All right, so guys, I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you, man. We talked about Dark Phoenix last week on the show when James McAvoy came out in that interview and explained a reason that, you know, at least he thought they had done all the reshoots and had taken so much time in post-production for Dark Phoenix. And at the time, I told you guys, I think he's lying. He's like straight up lying. Maybe that was part of the reason they did reshoots, but overall, that's not the real story. This movie has been mired in a lot of post-production problems. In fact, some of the worst post-production problems I've ever personally heard of. And I told you guys then that sources were reporting that this movie was a complete and total mess. But as many of you rightly pointed out, until we got that confirmed, it was just a rumor. Until reviewers actually got to see the movie and then post their reviews, we didn't really know if it was really bad. Well, all of that changed this morning when the review embargo lifted, which, by the way, we've talked about this on the channel before too, but when a review embargo is right next to when a movie comes out, it's either because of spoilers or because the movie is terrible. Anyway, yeah, the reviews started flying out this morning, and Dark Phoenix originally debuted with an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, it did climb up as much as a 23% and then bounce back down to a 21%, which is where it remains at the time of this recording. Now, it's important to note that this movie only has 91 official reviews in, and when more come in, it could bump it up slightly, or it could even hurt it slightly. But the overall picture here, guys, is that this is literally the worst reviewed movie, or at least until it maybe goes up or down, the worst reviewed X-Men movie of all time. And beyond just that score, I went in and read what different reviewers were saying about the film, and it's really discouraging stuff. I particularly recommend checking out Jeremy John's review. I really respect Jeremy a lot. I like what he has to say about most things. His review is painfully brutal as far as how bad this Dark Phoenix movie is. He literally says it's worse than Apocalypse and it's worse than X-Men Origins. X-Men Origins is a movie so bad that the Deadpool movie makes fun of it, and people make fun of Dan and Dave because one of them was actually one of the writers on that film. It's like memeably bad. It's like really, really bad. And Dark Phoenix is apparently worse. Even some of the positive reviews, like there's a really confusing positive review on Rotten Tomatoes that literally says it's such a shame that the movie ended like this, that the saga ends with this film. It's such a shame. And yet it's like a fresh tomato review. Like what? People are saying that it just seemed like the actors didn't care, the writers didn't care, maybe the producers, the studio, pretty much everybody involved did not care about this movie, which is incredibly disrespectful. The X-Men films overall at Fox have been hit or miss. They've had some really shining moments and some bad moments, but never before has it seemed like they just simply did not care about the fans whatsoever. That's the vibe I'm getting from Dark Phoenix. Now, naturally, the next question is, should you even go see the movie? Is there any redeeming qualities of it? Is it at least a spectacle? Is it really cool visually to check out? It being the finale, or maybe the finale, unless New Mutants comes out, to the Fox X-Men, does that mean you've got to see it to know how the story ends? And I very rarely do this. I tell people, all the time, go check it out for yourself. Check out what the reviews say. I always like to pick out certain reviewers that have similar taste to me and see what they say. But either way, I like to decide for myself. But I decided I'm not going to see this movie in theater. I'm not going to pay to see this movie. It seems like it's a complete disrespectful spit in the face of any self-respecting comic book fan. And I have to recommend to you guys to actually not go check it out. And many of you will go check it out, and that's fine. You should do what you want to do. I'm not going to like tell you what to do. But if you are asking me, if you think that my opinion on this should wait anyway, in your opinion, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to see this movie. I'm not going to pay to see this movie. And I actually don't think I'm going to recommend anyone to go see this movie. So whatever that means for you, take that into consideration. Now let's talk about what this means, man. What does this mean? Who's to blame exactly? Well, it's pretty unclear. I've heard a lot of different things from behind the scenes, a lot of them rumors, a lot of things that, I can't prove at all, so why even bring them up? But overall, it does feel like Fox was pretty aware of what was going on in this movie early on. There were a lot of things that happened when Bryan Singer decided not to come back, and then there was confusion. The cast wanted Simon Kinberg to be a part of this. There were doubts about Kinberg because he had never directed before. A lot of weird stuff going into it, and I don't know what happened from there, but what I do know is that when this ending changed, and during a lot of the reshoots post rumblings of the Marvel Cinematic deal with Fox and Marvel Studios, the response by the studio was to not spend a lot of money on this movie. One of the things that's pretty clear is that the ending was changed. Whether or not it was changed because of Captain Marvel is irrelevant. It was changed to a really low budget sequence. Spoilers slightly, I guess, but the end of the film takes place on a train, and apparently most of the shots are just kind of cart by cart, box by box in a train, and there's really not much to the scene at all. They didn't want to spend money on this movie. They kind of knew it was a bunch of crap and that it was the end of this X-Men saga, and so why would they even really want to continue? It's just really disappointing, man. So let's talk about some of the other things that we've been learning about this film. In hindsight, just some interesting talking points. It dropped last week that one of the actresses, the actress that plays Storm, was being asked about her character in the movie, and she said she was really shortchanged, that, Storm was treated poorly and should have gotten more screen time, more to do in this movie. And I've heard some people say that there's glimmers of how great this Storm could actually be in this film. There were even slight glimmers of how good she could be in Apocalypse, so it does kind of seem like this character was given the shaft. It could have been an awesome part of the story. Also, it was reported that Hugh Jackman was actually rumored to join the film, and they were going to do a version of what happened in X3 with Logan and Jean. However, apparently because of the age difference, they decided not to do this, not to really have Jean Grey, that young Sophie Turner Jean Grey, have any kind of romantic feelings with the 50-year-old Hugh Jackman. And that's totally fine, but it also sort of points to this weird thing of why would you even do that story again? Why would you do Dark Phoenix again? You've already done it, and it was one of the worst ones you've done. But I found that interesting that potentially there could have been Hugh Jackman in there. They probably decided not to recast because the contract would only have been for one movie, potentially because of the Fox, Marvel deal. They're not going to recast Jean Grey or bring in the other actress that had played her before because of the, the new X-Men that they're trying to establish. But overall, that's been part of the problem with the X-Men franchise, is a lack of visionary leadership, a lack of a overall cohesive story on the macro. I mean, even their stories that are seemingly really cool, like Days of Future Past, really make very little sense once you start to question some things that happened in the movies. Like Mystique at the end of that movie being Strucker, that's pointless. It means nothing, and it's dumb. Why'd they do it? As far as the legacy of the Fox X-Men movies, I still think it has a great legacy. There's been incredible movies here, and as some of the reviewers point out on Rotten Tomatoes, we owe a lot to the booming of the comic book movie genre to the early X-Men movies. But to me, I think it ultimately ends at Logan. For me, there's a few really good movies in there, and then it pretty much ends with Logan, which is a great end cap to that whole universe. And if anybody in the future ever asks me, hey, I want to sit down and watch these Fox X-Men movies, what movie should I do? Where does it end? I will tell them it stops at Logan. And I wish that the studio had let it stop at Logan. And so that's pretty much the news of the day, guys. Dark Phoenix, as bad as we had heard it was going to be, I'm not going to see it, and I'm actually going to recommend that you not see it as well. Of course, you're free to make up your own mind, and if you do go see it and enjoy it, that's great. I would never want to take any enjoyment away from you. But I gotta be honest, I don't think the studio deserves any money for this. I think it's pretty disrespectful to fans, actually. Now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know what character from the Shi'ar Empire actually was a love interest of Charles Xavier in the comics. Pretty cool character that we thought was going to be in this movie and didn't end up being in it, at least to my knowledge. So the question remains, who was the love interest from the Shi'ar Empire of Charles Xavier? Answer that question in the comment section below. Bear with me for the rest of the week, guys. We're going to be cranking out a lot of cool content, but it might be slightly different than you're used to. And make sure you check the Den of Nerds gaming channel out and check out the gaming video I'm going to do on this channel tomorrow. Lots of cool stuff with E3 around the corner, so we've got a lot of gaming coverage coming to you from the Den of Nerds gaming. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.